Violence is the absence of peace, and non-violence is the practice of being harmless to self and others. Non-violence is a way through which it is possible to attain peace. It is possible to change the attitude of a generation through non-violence.
I think non-violent is a great ideal. I believe in this. But at the present moment, I think just talking about non-violence is not enough. I think we, the older generation, has failed to show the younger generation a way in which non-violence can become a part of our life.
We should try to enhance our morality and value.
We are celebrating one of the most glorious events of human history, which the world will celebrate for hundreds of years to come. It has been 50 years since Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stirred the whole world with his speech, "I have a dream."
I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. Let it rain from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city. We will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, "Free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last."
His strong words on that day in 1963 touched millions. We all carry his teachings, lessons, and ideology throughout our lives.
It was so powerful, it touched us. And so during the 1960s, which I remember this vividly, this is my youth. And so I grew up side by side with Martin Luther King. And sometimes we were afraid because he advocated civil disobedience, nonviolence, but some people who said they were followers of his perpetrated violent acts, and they were frightening to us because we couldn't understand, we couldn't relate to the injustice that he was fighting back. Nonetheless, when he spoke to us on the television, on the radio, on August 28, 1963, I remember this. I was only 14 or 15 years old, and we watched on television. This is a big deal. Everything stopped. And we went into the house, and we watched Martin Luther King Jr. deliver that speech. And to this day, it's just so powerful. It just courses through my blood. This is 50 years later. And that speech, the cadence of that speech, the vision of the speech, the hope of the speech, that is so powerful.
The idea of non-violence came from Henry David Thoreau. The birth of this concept took place in the land of opportunity. But as time passed by, this concept spread all over the world.
I mean, I was teaching Thoreau, but I came across this passage of Thoreau's ideas, because Thoreau's ideas of civil resistance moved from 19th century, mid-19th century America to, surprisingly, South Africa in the beginning of the 20th century, where Gandhi was working as an activist. And as I pursued this idea, I found out that Gandhi had done a lot of work on Thoreau, had translated Thoreau's Civil Resistance. And then when Gandhi moved to India, he applied the idea of civil resistance, and we all know the result, the civil disobedience movement, which led to the end of British India, started there. But as I followed this idea even further, I found out that the implications and the extent of the traveling was endless, because eventually we find out that Gandhi's ideas went back to South Africa, influenced Mandela, and Gandhi's ideas went back to North America and impacted on the philosophy of Martin Luther King. So much so that Martin Luther King actually went to India, to Gandhi's ashram, to find out more about Gandhi and to get a first-hand experience. So there is this traveling back and forth of ideas, and the idea of civil resistance, of civil disobedience, as something which has traveled back and forth and changed the world, fascinates me.
In South Asia, the concept of non-violence was used by Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, commonly known as Mahatma Gandhi. He was inspired by Henry David Thoreau. He said, "Non-violence is more powerful than an armed man, and it can help the helpless." His idea of non-violence was based on individual ethics and application on society. He used his idea in the fight against the British. In Africa, the idea of non-violence was used by Nelson Mandela. He used this concept of non-violence against racism, through which he wanted to establish a democratic and free society where every person will live together in harmony and peace. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was one of the chief spokesmen of non-violent activism and civil rights movement. He was inspired by Gandhi. He fought for the racial equality and civil rights for the blacks.
That dream is unfulfillable in the literal sense, but very much fulfilled in an important sense, because now we as a nation are focused on advancing down this road toward a destination. You never get to the destination of full equality, a racial free society where color of skin has no impact. That's probably never going to happen, but you keep advancing down that road.
The tradition of non-violence is not new in Bangladesh. The very birth of Bangladesh was set on a platform of a non-violent movement. After 41 years of independence, Bangladesh is still exercising the ideals of non-violence.